The conversation around aging has generally been one of fear and trepidation and concern for those of us who are in our 50s and getting older. We worry about, will we outlive our retirement savings? If you wake up at 3 in the morning, like I do almost every night, and you ruminate about, all your past mistakes, future failures upcoming, and the state of the world, global warming, the mess you've made for your kids and not having enough money to live out the rest of your life, then you can add aging to your list because, in an ageist society, it takes away all those opportunities for us and that adds to our stress. Um, I was really excited when I came across Amy and Zoe, who are the founders of the Rosie Roadshow. I'm going to share some more information on that in the notes below, but Rosie's Roadshow is basically, to me, an opportunity to reframe aging in a more positive and aspirational sort of way. And what they do on the roadshow is they're really helping to educate people of all generations, not just talking about retirement age, but starting young and redefining aging so it is more powerful. Um, Amy and Zoe are going from province to province. They are doing these live events and they're talking about, you know, how to be more productive in our older years, why it's important, how to support employees who are aging, and how to, rethink the way that we age, like by, remaining flexible and mobile and not kicking people out of their careers when they are still incredibly relevant. What I love is, these two gals are a lot younger than me, but they seem to really recognize that, we have value right until the end. And what society has done is made us feel that after a certain age, which tends to coincide with when they kick us out of our careers, we become invisible, irrelevant, and kind of a burden on society. But what we know to be true is that with our age comes our wisdom, and we have the potential to, live really strong and long for as long as we're meant to be here in a more positive way by changing our perspective, by having a game plan, and for really helping us to really understand, like, what does it mean to change your mindset so that the next couple of decades are optimal. Right now, just based on past generations and our own families, we see that, when society tells us that we're old and irrelevant, we tend to feel that way. And when we start feeling that way, our bodies and our brains respond accordingly. So the Rosie's Roadshow is going to change that. We're going to change it starting from a younger generation so that by the time my kiddo is looking at retirement, she's not looking at it as the end. She's looking at it as, oh, next chapter, moving on. That's exactly what I want for all of the generations in the future. And so please tune in and listen to Zoe and Amy of Rosie's Roadshow. Hi, Amy. Hi, Zoe. Thanks for joining me today.
Hi,
Thanks for having us.
Well, I think we were introduced through someone on LinkedIn, believe it or not. And it was because he noticed that we're both kind of working in the same space. We both have the same mission and goals for our brands and our audiences. And when he mentioned what you guys were doing to me, I was very excited because I love to talk about aging and wellness in the midlife space because I do think that there's a really great opportunity for all of us to age powerfully. Um, yeah, so I want to know, like, I want to talk to you both about, there's the Rosie Roadshow, which is amazing what you're doing, but I want to talk to you both as individuals before the Rosie Roadshow. Like, what are some of the challenges that you've noticed, gaps? What are some of the things you think we're up against, which kind of led you to the whole inception of your brand?
So I'll go first because I am the one who came up with Rosie's Roadshow initially. Leading up to Rosie's Roadshow, I had been trying out a whole lot of different career shoes on for size. And so I ran a marketing agency for 8 years that was focused on social media marketing, and had grown a large team and a large client roster. And through the pandemic, I found that I wasn't happy anymore running that agency, and I had 2 young kids. I decided to change course and exit that business. That led to me trying on a whole bunch of different careers and consulting gigs, coaching people. And then my grandmother died. So my grandmother died in March 2023, and I came up with the idea for Rosie's in July 2023. I think that as I was packing up her estate with my family, I had a lot of mixed feelings about what this end of life looked like. I had a lot of mixed feelings watching my mom and my aunts sort of come to terms with the fact that now their mom is gone. Are they going to be next? What does it look like when suddenly I'm watching my mom, who was the caregiver to her mother? Am I going to be the caregiver to mine? How does this all work? Life has moved forward in so many ways for me that I started to notice the gaps in a really big way.
I would say that I'm slightly older than you both, by a generation at least. I've lost both my grandmas. One was 101, and
Wow.
the other one
Mhm.
was 96. So they had, really long and full lives. They saw so much. My one grandma, who was 101, I mean, we talked about the fact that when she was born, it was before the First World War. We didn't even have washing machines and not even a telephone. So she saw everything from two world wars to major inventions to industrialization to technology to advances in technology. Like she saw so much in her life. Like it must have been so overwhelming for her. But then I look at my own life and I think, okay, I'm 56. I have seen lots of stuff, but like, let's name a few major sort of, global milestones is 9/11, which, I'll be one of those people who will always say, I know exactly where I was when that, plane hit the tower, and I saw the World Trade Centers before they were gone. I've seen like so many things like the invention of the internet. I'm older than the internet. Cell phones, I've now lived through a global pandemic. So those are like some of the negative things. But I mean, just just looking at a big, full, rich life like that and all the things that we experience. And it kind of seems to me like it doesn't make sense to have like all of these to be witness to all of these, incredible events and then just go out like snuffed out. I feel like end of life should be a little more celebrated. And both of my grandmas were amazing people, but they were both in nursing homes in the end. Of course, that makes sense. I just feel like they seemed older before they were older
Yeah,
because
I mean, and this is just it, right? Like, I think that the way society works right now, and yes, I am young, and no, I haven't got the personal lived experience, but from my observations, what I see and what I hear is that people are saying things like, I'm not ready to be irrelevant yet. I'm not dead yet. My life is still vibrant and full, and I still have important things to say. And just because I'm no longer employable by someone else's standards doesn't mean that I don't produce valuable things every day. And I think at this juncture in, you know, Canada's, demographics changing, the baby boomers aging, all of these, demographic trends and economic trends. Again, it's Canada, but it's also globally. I think we're writing people off too soon. I think we're missing the mark in terms of intergenerational mentorship, coaching, collaboration, and extending what it means to work, extending what it means to be a viable human that has the ability to contribute to the world and economy. I don't think it ends at 65. I also think that we need to start planning for that period of life, 65 plus, 55 plus, 45 plus,
yeah.
in a different way. So, I mean, I don't want someone to look at me in 20 or 30 years from now and say, like, all right, she's done now. That's
Yeah.
that's ridiculous.
I
I-
worked in the communication industry, so I really did see a lot, and like you we would have seen in marketing, I'm sure, a lot of ageism.
yeah.
But the thing is, like, if you're alive, then you are living. So why are you irrelevant? I mean, just because you're going up in years doesn't mean your stories go away. Doesn't mean every year you're not still learning or acquiring new skills or ideas. Like it's a shame that we do put people out on an emotional ice flow after a certain age, because you look at other cultures around the world where they celebrate, people as they age, they become the elders, they become the caregivers, the nurturers, the
Forever.
leaders,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And here we're like, women feel like we feel like we need to Botox and filler so that it's like we're disguising ourselves so you guys don't put us out to pasture. And by you guys, I just mean all the younger generations, because that's how it works, right? Generation after generation, we are kind of taught how to teach our elders through the generation ahead of us.
That resonates with me. When I was 11, I was a volunteer at a nursing home. And for me, because I've always been really curious, I remember just walking down the different hallways and seeing these residents sitting in their wheelchairs alone.
Hmm.
And I always try to understand and ask the question, what did you do? Tell me about your life.
Good
What
for
made you special? And so, even when I was 11, I knew there was a lot to learn from our elders.
you.
And it's truly heartbreaking to know that you can accomplish so much in your life. And
Hmm.
as you get older, you're just not as important in society. And I don't agree with it.
Hmm.
I see lessons being experienced over and over and over again. And what if we could learn from our elders so we don't have to redo the lesson over again? And so this is why I love Rosie's Roadshow, is because we look at professionals and we don't put an expiration date on it. I used to work in HR. I would do a lot of recruitment and I would hear the stories where people would be discriminated for a multitude of reasons, and one of them is ageism.
Hmm.
And it's a great shame because people make these assumptions that, like, oh, if you're older, if you're 65, you don't know how to use a computer. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
And so we want to challenge all these false assumptions about people. I mean, who are the ones who actually created these computers? And you see
Yes.
people who are in their 90s who are using Zoom and on their phones, and we have to correct that narrative, and we have to start finding ways to give people more opportunities to contribute.
Yeah.
And so it goes back to learning, who were you? Because everybody has value, and it's creating a space that is safe for people to show up and to be given opportunities to show that they're incredible.
It's funny because, like, I have a 13-year-old daughter who loves to laugh at me when I lose my glasses and do all the things that people my age do. Um, but she loves to make fun of me when I can't figure something out on my phone. And I remind her that I taught you how to use a fork. So don't even bother trying to make me feel dumb for not knowing technology. But it's interesting. Like, I really love what you guys are saying, because there is evidence, and there are statistics that show that the older people get, the more information they retain, and actually they're almost more flexible to learn new things. So this idea, this is an expression, I don't know if you guys know in your generation, but you can't teach an old dog a new trick. It's absolutely not true. And women especially, like when women hit, the demographic that I'm in, 45 and up, even 40, I would say it was a little older than 40, but we start to lose, that caring about what other people think. We start to kind of come into our own a lot more, which is, such a plus. And now that I'm in my 50s, I can say, wow, like I love the way I looked in my 20s, maybe a little better. Wish I'd had social media so I could have taken one hot bikini shot, just one that would live on the internet. But, you know, I'm actually in a way better place in my life because I don't care as much. I'm willing to take way more risks now. And I think that's because I don't care what other people think if I do. I also know because of learned lessons in life that failure is actually an opportunity. And as much as we try to pound that into the heads of our youth, we're sending so many mixed messages, like I feel like we're really confusing the upcoming generations by saying failure is an important learning tool, but yet anyone fails on social media, we cancel them.
Mm.
So, we've got to get our acts together. But something you said sort of made me think about that. If we don't learn from the past, we are, inclined to repeat the same mistakes. And that's where, learning from people who are older and decades ahead of us, generations ahead of us, I mean, because they might seem frail physically, up here, they have got so much information that we should be tapping into, so much experience, so much perspective. I mean, they've seen some of the greatest transitions in society, in technology, in politics and economy. We're living through global warming, and can we reverse that? Like, we need to tap into all of that knowledge base, not just the youth of today, but other generations who've lived through like maybe industrialization. What did they learn about that whole
So I think Jackie, what you're saying is really aligned with our mission, but I would also point to the fact that older adults and seniors, to us, it's not just 80-year-olds or 90-year-olds. We're
yeah.
also talking about the fact that 60, 70, this is a lot younger than it used to be. So people are living longer. Statistics show that people are outliving their retirement savings by 8 to 20 years.
Oh God.
So what's happening is as folks leave the workplace when they're told it's the appropriate time to leave, they're not being given appropriate tools to have a transition, to be part of a succession plan, to continue making passive revenue as a coach, a mentor, or as a consultant. We're just writing off so much of the important part of the equation that sets me and Amy and members of the sandwich generation up
Mhm.
you for ongoing success in our careers. Because what we're saying is, we're saying, okay, we're going to exit all of these baby boomers at 65, maybe 70 if they're lucky because they're super valuable. But most likely 60 because, oh, come on, freedom 55.
Yeah.
And then all of this burden of holding up the economy and the pressures and the performance and the positive energy at a workplace falls on us, not just women, women and men who are in the workplace, who are both parents and watching their parents age and navigate all of this unknown territory. So there are resources, there are places to get education on what to do as you age. But what we're really finding is that folks don't know how they're going to hold up caregiving for their children and for their aging parent who's like, what's my purpose now? What am I supposed to do with all this time?
Yeah.
And then the third piece of the puzzle is that the company is saying, our performance isn't what it used to be. Why
Yeah.
are our staff not engaged? Why are people feeling like they can't come into the office anymore? What is it all the pandemic's fault? The answer is no, it's not all the pandemic's fault. The numbers and the statistics speak for themselves. There are more people now over the age of 65 than there are under the age of 15 in Canada.
Wow.
By 2043, it's going to be 1 in 4 Canadians are 65 or older. We
Okay.
can't ignore those statistics. 25% of our population being 65 or older does not set us up well the way we're currently thinking about getting older, taking care of people who are getting older, seeing people who are getting older as valuable.
Exactly.
So we have to pay attention.
Yeah, I think that really resonates with a lot of people. I just had an interesting conversation with someone as I was talking about Rosie's Roadshow and what you guys are doing and why I feel so passionate about what you're doing. Um, I think that aging isn't just like a personal experience that we go through. I think aging, we are impacted, and the way we age is impacted by the way society treats us and the way we personally view aging, which is also, let's face it, a reflection of how society treats it. For example, I don't know if you've ever watched the Blue Zones, those, communities around the world where, in one blue zone, this woman is 100 years old, and every day she climbs these stairs up a hill to get her groceries. And I bet you she could beat me in a race. And so, really, like, I feel like what happens when we get older is we start to do little things that impact our aging. We start to sit on a stool to put our shoes on. We start to lose mobility because we treat ourselves like we need more support. And that's the same with our brain. I know, watching my grandma, who was super sharp until she was 99, went into a nursing home, and within 9 months she forgot my name. And I know I know we're talking around, 100 years old, that's going to happen. But they do say, as soon as, we lose purpose, as soon as we stop physically moving, as soon as we stop learning, we do deteriorate, we decline
Yeah.
quickly.
Yeah.
And so what you're saying makes a lot of sense. Like, maybe we're not going to work in, a corporation when we're 65, 75, but there are a lot of other, jobs and needs out there in the community and society. And I feel like we need to stop putting a number on our productivity and allowing us to keep going until we call the shots and say, okay, I'm tired now.
I think thank you for that. I mean, thank you. You're pitching Rosie's for us, with us.
You're welcome.
What I would say is so important. What I take away from what you're saying is that, you know, if I feel like society is going to look at me a certain way, I'm less likely to take risks. I'm
Yeah.
less likely to feel brave, right? So going out and feeling afraid that people are going to think I'm too old for something is going to hold me back. And if we can say, like, let's not hold ourselves back because we're afraid of what people will think about that what that will do for social isolation. So, social isolation numbers for folks who are above 55 or 60 is 41% of Canadians above that age. I can't remember if it was 55 or 60. 41% of Canadians say that that's how they feel. They feel lonely. They report reports of loneliness. And what doctors and medical professionals say about loneliness is that loneliness is as bad for our bodies as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. And
Wow.
what that tells me is that this fear of not being seen for who we really are, and instead being seen, as you said, as old or as not valuable, or why should we even bother because they're just going to say no to us, that contributes to people staying home, isolating, not feeling brave, and ultimately shortening their life, shortening their potential. And what we choose to see is limitless potential in ourselves and in the people who are in our ecosystem. Because when we work together, when we have hard conversations and pair that with joy, we can be brave together. And really good business outcomes can happen. So people are like, oh, it's so nice, I feel so good. But this is not just about feeling good. This has true implications on business in terms of return on investment, of why you should get involved with work like this, because engaged, happy people working
Yeah.
equal better results for a business. We can't argue with, like, people are like, oh, it's not, a Facebook ad result is a Facebook ad result. And I'm like, yeah, but think about someone who feels more motivated to work more creatively on that ad with someone who maybe has ad experience in the newspaper from, maybe
Yeah.
that's not relevant anymore. But when you put a young mind and an older, more experienced mind together, the magic that comes out of that is incredible.
But, like, I think about entertainment, I think about the media. I mean, we are always referencing older examples, right? And that's just how the creative process goes. We can't ignore the learnings of the past, of things that worked really well in the past, or things in the past that really shifted the needle on things. I mean, say, for example, in advertising, we go back to, like, I think about, in presentations with clients, we constantly talk about the Hertz ad. We're not number two. That means we're going to work harder to be number one. That ad, had so much return on investment for the brand. And, some of the old Volkswagen ads, like, There's a lot
Well,
to
the history helps the business, right? Like
exactly.
they say that businesses who have been around for a long time have a lot of clout, right? So why isn't the same thing applied to people? I think Amy had something really important to say, so I'm gonna hand it to her.
Yeah, so I think part of just adding on to what you said, Zoe, is also looking at educating people about preventative health and wellness as well.
Yes.
And so, in order to continue to stay relevant and have purpose, it's also recognizing that our brains are really important to us.
Mm-hmm.
That's our CPU, and it's so interesting to hear that brain health doesn't come up until the later years, the
Mm-hmm.
focus on it. And part of what we're trying to do is educate those who come to our road shows is that there are different things that we can all do to keep our brains active and fresh and continue to learn and retain. And that's a big piece that we're doing, and also looking at different types of health and different resources that people can really tap into. And that allows us to live a life that we want to live with being a lot healthier.
One thing that I would say, when you think about sort of back to Zoe's point about, if someone tells you you're too old to do something, you might feel like, I don't want to do that because there's already preconceived perception that I will not be able to do that. I do think you'll shake a little bit of that concern as you get older. I mean, I've definitely tried things in my 50s. I don't care if people think I'm going to fail. However, the things that I see that work against us here is when you think about the fact that the number one, that public speaking is the number one fear, even over death. And why is that? Because we are showing ourselves, we are vulnerable to an audience. And we're afraid that if we fail, we'll be judged on that. So that information came out years and years and years ago before social media. Now, if we know that to be true, now we know that everything we do, we are being judged on social media. So now we have a wider audience to
Mhm.
judge us and to share our failure. And it probably goes viral, even though every post you create, you hope goes viral, doesn't, but that's the one that will. You're not just talking to an audience of 30 people or 100 people. Like if you get up there and try something and it doesn't work, you're out there.
Everyone's watching.
The world is watching, literally. So I can see why that is a reason for us to sort of pull back and stop trying. We don't want that I told you so. I told you you were too old to do this. And I think to your point, even about like brain health and everything else, that's a conversation and that's a health journey we need to start decades before it is something we should really be thinking about as an obvious concern. Like, we don't go on a diet and expect to lose 7 pounds by Friday. It becomes part of our, it's our mission. We've got to work on our exercise. We've got to work on the food we're eating. And then maybe in 3 months, we're going to start to see results. So we can't just wait till we're 50 and go, oh crap, I better work on like my memory now. And women, especially with menopause and, a loose tie to Alzheimer's, we don't want to wait till it's too late. So
No.
what I like about what you're doing is changing that narrative and saying, if we start thinking about aging positively now and we make it part of our life plan, then by the time we hit 50, 60, 70, those milestones are more positive for us. And maybe we're going to start seeing those milestones as something a little more exciting versus uh-oh, I'm 75, I'm totally out. So that's where I see it being a long-term plan, not just like an immediate solution.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to live my life as a countdown to when I'm going to die.
Good point.
I want to live my life as I'm here now. I'm going to do the best I can. I'm going to do whatever I can do to make the world a little bit brighter.
Yep.
I'm going to try my best to be brave. And I am going to know that if I see value in others, that others will see value in me.
Yeah.
And, you know, I've worked with so many different small, medium businesses and also different sorts of businesses. And that attitude where you're choosing life and hope and positivity,
Hmm.
you know, I don't need, and I advise as a social media marketer, I advise people to not look at the number of likes or the number of comments, but to look for the quality,
Yeah.
right? I don't need 100 friends.
Yeah.
I need a few good friends who know
Yeah.
me, who really know me. I don't think that many people will actually get to know me that deeply as Amy knows me. And I don't need the whole world to know me that deeply, but it doesn't mean that I can't share special parts of myself or things I'm learning with the world. And so I think your comment about social media and bravery and the risk of putting ourselves out there in front of the whole world, I think it's all comes down to choice,
Hmm.
right? Learning and choice. We
Yep.
have choice. We get to live our life. This is our life. And hopefully, the way we choose to live it can make things a little bit better, a little bit more rosy, as I like to say. And I want to be my grandmother's day and say, like, all right, this chapter is over. It's time for it to end now.
Mhm.
And I did the best I could.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the
think
biggest,
also opening us up to possibilities.
yeah.
I think in terms of how society looks at folks getting older, you get older, you get to have your bucket list, you retire, have grandchildren, but like there's not much else in terms of what people are planning towards. And I think that's part of what we're doing is adding to possibilities and exposing people to volunteer opportunities, being on the boards of different organizations, finding different ways to utilize skills and still get paid for it. It's really trying to release our set idea of how it's supposed to be into what it could be
Mm.
that's based on one's own self versus expectations of others. And that's what I love about Rosie's is that we create a psychologically safe environment for people to explore and to play and to see what feels good for them to continue and hopefully write a whole new chapter,
Yeah.
which would be wonderful.
What we like to say is the best chapter is still unwritten because everyone's like,
Oh, I
oh,
love that.
my best days are behind me.
Oh
And
my God. Yeah.
I'm
No,
like,
they're
can we
not.
stop with that? That's whack. You know, we got to say our best days are still ahead and life is still worth living. And I'm 35 and I don't want to be like, oh my gosh, now I'm getting older. It's terrible. It's not
Yeah.
terrible. It's not
Actually,
terrible.
think about the alternative. That's terrible. And what since I've been sort of working in the women's health and menopause space, I've learned a lot, and I actually have a different perspective now than I did when I was even your age. I have a really good set of role models with my parents. My dad is 82, my mom is 79. My mom walks 5K a day, and if she's not out walking, she's on the treadmill. And my dad bikes in the summer about he'll go for a bike ride a couple of times a week, 30K, but he'll also walk 5K. He hikes. They both golf. They don't have time to see their grandchildren sometime because they are so busy. And I'm like, wait a minute, that's not how it's supposed to be. This was not in the plan when I became a parent. You were supposed to be my babysitters. Now I'm trying to like book tea times with you just so we can chat. That's how I want it to be. They have, they're starting to lose friends. I mean, their friends are getting older and, there's disease and, long-term illnesses. I get that. But knowing that when that happens, you are still leading a full life, I think it makes it feel less, oh my God, am I next? I'm losing all my friends. They're still making new friends. And so they should be because connection, human connection, as we saw during the pandemic, that's critical to our mental health. And our mental health is critical to how we stay productive. I would rather have an 80-year-old or a 70-year-old in the workplace fully engaged, complete presenteeism, positive about the work in front of them than someone who's in their 30s who can't wait to get out of there is already thinking of their next career change. Like there's benefits to both sides, but we're only ever looking at the benefits to youth. The
Mm.
second thing is the beauty industry is the biggest villain here. Like I I've worked with like medical spas and beauty brands over the years, and I'm so tired of hearing 40 is the new 30, 50 is the new 30, 50 is the new 40. No, 50 is 50, and 50 is frigging awesome, by the way. I never thought I would say that. I turned 50. My husband took me to New York. It was like the biggest, best party I ever had. And I kicked off my 50s going, wow, like there is so much more ahead. And I didn't feel trepidatious about it. I felt more trepidatious about 40 than I did at 50. The beauty industry makes us feel we need the fillers and the Botox, like I said, to feel younger. But really, if we really look at what makes us feel younger, it's our mobility, it's our brain, it's our capacity to take on new roles and new challenges and new tasks and kick ass. You know, if I can't go for a 5K walk without losing my breath or going up my stairs, or I wake up in the morning and my back's sore, that makes me feel old. And once I start feeling old, that'll get right into my head. So I think that shift, it all starts with attitude. It's an attitudinal change before anything, which is exactly what you guys are doing, which is what I'm trying to do in women's health. One shift I am seeing that I friggin' love is, do you guys remember the Golden Girls? Have you ever heard of that
Of
show?
course.
Okay, I don't know. Well, Betty White, I mean, she's iconic. But the Golden Girls was something all women laughed at and never wanted to be in my generation. They were, I mean, seriously, Hollywood. Look at the way that they dressed them. Those women were younger than me when they recorded that. And they looked very like they looked frumpy and old and like they looked outdated. They looked like as soon as they left that condo that they were going to be seen as like really old people. Now women look at that show and like in my age group we're like, you know, when I get older I want to be a golden girl. I want all us girls to live together in a villa
Mm.
in Italy with wine, and we are going to have a pool and a pool boy. Like we are not going to sit around in moo like watching little grandchildren run around and not be able to pick them up. No, we're going to kick ass, and we're going to continue to kick ass, and that's only going to happen by having a healthy mindset and a game plan. And that's where
So
you.
something I see in my dad is 83, and I think what keeps my dad young, and so my dad, um, he's silly. He always wants to learn. He's always reading. He's always watching documentaries, and he's always the cookie monster with my kids. And he understands that he gets to choose how to show up in his day to day. And he has lots of reasons to be upset, to be angry, to be sad, but he chooses to be grateful for what he has in his life. And I think that's the attitude that keeps people young. I also think that Zoe and I are also working with different communities that aren't necessarily from Canada. And sadly, there isn't always that choice to live the retirement of your dreams because just the day to day are so hard.
Mhm.
And so that's part of what we're trying to do as well is to help people navigate in the Canadian society, in Canadian systems, provincial systems, and really helping people to have the tools and know how to support their parents because they didn't grow up in this way. And so I love that Rosie's is for everybody. And we're trying to make sure that the resources that we cultivate and curate to come together are really looking at who's the Roadshow for. And we make it really specific to the people that we want to help.
Yeah. I think what you're doing is helping change the way that we age from like a resource, a resilience, a physical, and an emotional perspective. And that's really what we need, right? So I
Thank
have to
you.
ask you, I ask everyone this season on my podcast. Um, as you know, it's Girl with a Pearl, and you guys have a ton of pearls because you have worked in different industries, but also like you bring to this roadshow so much perspective and data. Um, Now, if you had to offer a pearl of wisdom for someone listening to this who's thinking, yeah, I want to think more positively about aging, but I also want to age more powerfully, more gracefully, and more confidently, what would be a piece of advice you would share?
I've got one. um, Tap into what feels good. As basic as it is, try to feel what makes you happy. Because when you are diving into what brings you happiness and joy, you're tapping into your passion. And for me, somebody who always played by the rules, never took risks, I am doing one of the most risky things of my life. And to be honest, it doesn't feel as scary as it should
No.
because I love what I'm doing. It feels good. And so that is the pearl of wisdom. Try to understand what makes you feel joy.
I love that you said that because I think, honestly, when you tap into your passion, it feels less of a risk and more of an adventure. I think that is a great pearl of wisdom. And I told you risks are fun. You have anything to add, Zoe?
Yeah, I mean, I have lots of things coming to my mind, but I think that I would direct my pearl to leaders
Mm-hmm.
and say that when I show up as a leader who chooses to see the full person, the results and of that built trust and that built compassion for one another really mean that excellent work also gets done. So
Yeah.
you can feel good and do good work. You can be someone who is productive and you can feel supported. It is possible for anyone who's out there who's feeling like, is it possible to feel that way?
Yeah.
I really believe and know that it is possible. So I think there's a lot of challenging work situations going on right now in the last couple of years. And I just want to remind people that it is possible and it is worth fighting for yourself to find a place where you can land, where you can have a little bit of both, if not perfection, which is not possible, a little bit of both.
Well, perfection in our own terms, right? For me,
Yeah,
it's the perfect life, being able to balance a family, my passion, create my own career. That's
yeah,
perfection.
right. So define your own success and
Yeah,
know that it's worth reaching for.
I love that. And I think, Freedom 55 used to mean retirement to me. I mean, that's what all the ads were about. Freedom 55 to me now is the freedom to do what I want with my life and my career, but to still have a career. Rosie's Roadshow. I'm going to share more information about that. I'm looking forward to, seeing your like upcoming list of events and locations, and sharing more information as you go along on your journey. But I want to thank you, Zoe and Amy, because, like I said, I'm very passionate about what you're doing, and your passion just comes through in our conversation and also in the work that you're doing. So, thank you for taking the time today to talk to me about this. This conversation gets me all fired up, as you can tell. And I'm just really glad to see more women and more people in the space talking about this in such a positive and, optimistic way. So, thank you so much.
Come and celebrate with us. We have 12 leadership labs coming up in 2025
Amazing.
across Southern Ontario, and then 2 flagship events, which are focused on aging adults and loved ones. So 12 leadership
Absolutely.
labs, 2 flagships. See you there.
Okay.